house here, and the guy won't sell. Remember Naboth? He said, I got this, my inheritance. My father gave it to me. I can't sell it for any price. I love this land. It was a vineyard. And he came home, got in a little fetal position, and Mama came over and said, honey, don't worry. I'll take care of it. She got liars to go into court and to say some things about him. They wound up executing him. And when they executed him, they took his land. It's called eminent domain today.
Yeah.
Amen.
And she came home one day and said, honey, I've got you that piece of land you wanted. All achieved through a shadow government. Wow. Now here's the thing, real quick. That is all through the Bible. That's just not one story in the Bible. All the way to the book of Revelation, where Jesus, y'all know red letters are not just in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Look in chapter 2 and 3 of Revelation. You'll see Jesus is speaking. And one of the things he talks about is Jezebel. And it's not just about that lady who lived years ago. It's about people who operate the same way she did. There's a strong judgment upon that. Our country has been operating in a, how can I say, with a shadow government. There are people really with influence. It's not just you and me going to the voting booth and casting our ballots, and by golly, we won this time, and it was close, but we have this naive understanding sometimes of how it really works.
Right.
It hasn't been that way for a long time. That doesn't mean that we should stop fighting and try to turn this thing around and get it back to the way our founders, who were influenced by God, set it up to be. We still have a workable situation, but we're going to have to clean house. We're going to have to root out the corruption and shine the light in every dark place. As long as we are free from religion, the light will not shine in the places that need it the most.
Right.
I'll just close with this and then we'll take some callers, okay? In Acts chapter 5, Peter and John got hauled in for saying things that they weren't supposed to be saying. First Amendment problem. I have a feeling preachers like Jason Murphy are going to be facing those kind of things in the future. I'll just put it on him. May there be many, 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 many of us. That's what's going to be the difference. But they were hauled in. They said, you can't talk like that anymore. And they said, okay, boy, we're in that funny place all of a sudden again. What do? I respect authority. These men, biblically have a place. God ordained the position that they have and everything. But you know what? I'm going to have to obey God rather than men at those points. At those points, that's what a real believer has to do. And it is. It's like our founders. They laid it all on the line at those moments. They put it all out there. It's my reputation, my life, my family, my money, my home. It's kind of interesting. An active duty military guy brought me to the story recently of the Concord Bridge. And a few Minutemen were at the Concord Bridge, and they were firing upon the British, who greatly outnumbered them. And they were winning. They were winning the battle. Suddenly they looked, and their homes behind them, somehow the British, because they had so many soldiers, had gone around behind them and began to burn their homes and attack their families. Thinking that they would leave their position and go individually back and take care of their problems at home, and that would give them the advantage, and they would take the bridge. But what happened was, when they saw their homes in flames, they only fought harder. They went forward. They didn't go backwards. They had already made up their mind before the first shot was fired what they were going to do and what they were willing to pay. And that's whether you're a Christian, you're talking about Christianity and the commitment to God, to go to a foreign land and maybe die for your faith or whatever, stay in this land and die for your faith, whatever it might be, that commitment comes ahead of time so that when the situation is upon you, there's no question what you'll do.
Amen.
Now, that was different than any other place that the British had expanded their kingdom to. They hadn't dealt with people like this. Who are these people who defy us openly? Who are these people? Because after the Tea Party, they began to have open, militia practice where they exercise openly in town in broad daylight in front of the British troops. They weren't afraid to show their face. And who are these people? Well, these are people who knew freedom on the inside
Right.
because they knew God.
Right.
And they had had the Great Awakening prior to the Revolution. And that is what enabled them to go through the long, hard battles in the years that it took. So we can turn America around. God can through us.
Right.
But He can't, and we can't, without taking America back to its true foundation, which is Jesus Christ Himself, our sovereign.
Right.
Now that's reality. And those guys were like no one else in the world that the British had dealt with. Why? Well, they were in India, they were other places. They didn't know God there. They knew Hinduism, they knew other religions. Well, let's take some calls. And I want to just qualify this. 2 or 3 questions maybe. And I say take some calls because that's a radio thing. I'm just joking around. But on this topic, here's the topic, is have you dealt with a specific question or statement from somebody regarding this cop-out Christian thing? I know that's kind of I should have wrote that down so I would be better at saying it. But if you have, let's tell about it, and maybe I can give you some assistance. Yes.
My grandfather was a minister of our denomination for 58 years. He would turn over in his grave if he knew the official position our denomination has taken on questions of abortion. And I just discovered this recently, and I'm having a real struggle with this because we believe that life begins at conception. And if you've had biology, if you've had a science course in school, you know,
Right.
You see a cell begin life and it divides, and that's living. That's a living element.
I have a grandbaby right now, and we're tracking every week. The technology is so great today, and what's on the internet, she sends us, this is how big your grandbaby is this week. This is what it looks like.
Well, I brought this subject up in our Sunday school class, and I guess I'm considered the wicked witch of the north now, because I made a statement, and they said one person was afraid we were talking politics, and we don't do that. And this is, others said, well, it's up to the individual to decide what's right. And I don't believe that. So I'm having a struggle with our church.
What if this individual decides it's right to kill me tonight? That's the same thing. Of course there are boundaries to individual rights. Of course there are. And especially when you realize that that's a life, and now our technology is well past. Obama avoided the question because he knew the answer, and the answer is life begins at conception. That's just a fact. Even now, technically, they can walk you through that if you want to know the information. But if you stick your head in the sand because you know you're not going to like the answer, you're not going to know. Back here.
Well, I don't know. I go to a pretty big church, and what I run into is most of them, they don't want to. They can't believe that people are evil enough. They don't believe that we're under attack from a shadow government. Okay, they don't believe that people are that evil. When you start telling them these things, what's going on, then they just like, oh, you're just marginalized. Of course, with this bailout, with Obama getting in, it's a lot easier to,
When you touch people's money, unfortunately, a lot of Christians cry out when it's abortion or same-sex marriage or some issue like that. But you're not going to get the general population's attention until you start touching their money, and now they have. So, unfortunately, that's true. But I want to tell you something about the church at large in America. I'm saying this out of experience. The church leaders have been feminized to the point that they are non-confrontational. All these terms you want to use, which I know some feminine people who are pretty confrontational too, but the fact is, the church has been feminized, and the church has spent so much time covered up in these stained glass fortresses that they have kind of said, make the world go away. Yeah. They've lived this isolation life when the Lord said, get out there and be salt and light and everything. And because of that, they are naive, and they are now ignorant, which the definition of the word, or the root word is ignore. They have chosen to ignore. Like like the churches when the Jews were being brought by in boxcars. The churches who would sing louder.